Imagine surviving the greatest inferno humanity had ever created, only to face the exact same nightmare again, just 3 days later. It sounds impossible, but this is the true story of a man who witnessed 2 nuclear explosions with his own eyes and lived to tell the tale. In August 1945, while the world was drowning in the chaos of World War II, an ordinary Japanese engineer named Tsutomu Yamaguchi became the living witness of 2 of the darkest moments in human history. What makes this story terrifying is not only that he survived, but how fate seemed determined to place him directly in the center of destruction twice. And the most shocking detail, during the first explosion, he was only a few kilometers away from ground zero. Today, you're about to discover how a routine business trip turned into an unimaginable nightmare, how one man escaped death over and over again, and why his story still horrifies the world decades later. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here we uncover real stories so unbelievable they sound like Hollywood movies, except every word actually happened. On the morning of August 6, 1945, the city of Hiroshima woke up like any other day. Workers headed to their jobs, children walked to school, and shop owners opened their businesses without realizing many of them were living the final hours of their lives. At that moment, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was in the city for work. He was 29 years old and worked as a naval engineer. After months away from home, he was finally preparing to return to his wife and infant son in Nagasaki. But just before leaving, he realized he had forgotten an important document at the office. A tiny decision, a simple mistake, something completely ordinary that would change his life forever. As he walked through the streets, he suddenly heard the distant sound of an aircraft above him. During wartime, that alone was not unusual. But seconds later, he saw a flash so blinding it felt as if the sun itself had exploded directly in front of him. Then came a monstrous shockwave that hurled his body through the air like a rag doll. Buildings collapsed instantly. Windows shattered. The ground shook violently beneath him. In a matter of seconds, Hiroshima had become a burning apocalypse. The weapon dropped over Hiroshima became known as the Bombing of Hiroshima. It was the first time in history that a nuclear weapon had ever been used against a civilian population. Tens of thousands of people died almost instantly. Some were vaporized where they stood. Others suffered horrific burns before they even understood what had happened. Tsutomu regained consciousness injured, partially deaf, and badly burned. The scene around him looked like the end of the world itself. People wandered through the streets with skin hanging from their bodies, some carrying injured relatives, while others begged desperately for water moments before collapsing. Smoke covered the sky, fires consumed entire neighborhoods, and the city had become almost unrecognizable. What terrified survivors most was not only the destruction, but the silence after the explosion. A silence so unnatural it felt like life itself had disappeared. Somehow, against all odds, Tsutomu realized he was still alive. That night, surrounded by ruins and death, he tried to understand what kind of weapon could erase an entire city in a single instant. Nobody knew it yet, but humanity had entered the nuclear age. The following morning, despite his injuries and severe burns, Tsutomu made a decision almost impossible to imagine. He would return home. Think about that for a second. After surviving a nuclear explosion, he still managed to walk through destroyed streets, locate transportation, and board a train filled with traumatized survivors trying to escape the nightmare. During the journey, horrifying stories spread among passengers. Some described seeing human shadows burned into walls. Others spoke of rivers filled with bodies and entire families disappearing in seconds. Every station felt quieter than the last, as if fear itself had swallowed the country whole. Eventually, Tsutomu arrived back in Nagasaki and reunited with his wife and child, who were thankfully still alive. But even after everything he had witnessed, he decided to report back to work the very next morning. His co-workers struggled to believe his description of a single bomb destroying an entire city. To them, it sounded impossible. No weapon on Earth could possess that level of power. But while Tsutomu tried to explain the blinding flash and total devastation he had seen in Hiroshima, history was about to repeat itself in the most horrifying way imaginable. On August 9, 1945, only 3 days after Hiroshima, the nightmare happened again. While Tsutomu was speaking to his supervisors, another blinding flash suddenly filled the sky above Nagasaki. Seconds later, a violent shockwave tore through the city. The second atomic bomb, known as the Bombing of Nagasaki, had just detonated. Windows exploded inward. Buildings crumbled. Fires erupted across entire districts. Once again, Tsutomu found himself near the center of a nuclear catastrophe. Try to imagine the psychological horror of that moment. Surviving the deadliest weapon ever created, only to witness another one days later. Many people died instantly. Others became trapped beneath collapsed structures while screams echoed through the city. And somehow, impossibly, Tsutomu survived again. Even though his body had already been weakened by radiation and burns from Hiroshima, he escaped a second nuclear blast alive. Decades later, historians and scientists would consider his survival one of the most statistically unbelievable stories of the 20th century. After the second bombing, Japan fell into complete despair. The destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki not only devastated two cities, but shattered the spirit of an entire nation already exhausted by years of war. Days later, Japan officially surrendered, bringing an end to World War II. But for survivors, the real nightmare was only beginning. Radiation sickness started spreading silently among those who had escaped the initial explosions. People lost their hair, developed severe fevers, suffered internal bleeding, and died slowly from illnesses doctors barely understood at the time. Tsutomu himself endured years of pain caused by burns and radiation exposure. Yet despite everything, he continued living. He raised his family, worked for many years, and eventually chose to share his experiences with the world. The man who survived 2 atomic bombs became both a symbol of human endurance and a warning about the terrifying consequences of nuclear warfare. His story forced people across the globe to confront a terrifying truth. In just seconds, humanity had developed the power to erase entire cities forever. For many years, some people doubted his story. Surviving 1 atomic bomb already seemed nearly impossible. Surviving 2 sounded like fiction. But official records, eyewitness testimonies, and government documents eventually confirmed every detail. In 2009, the Japanese government formally recognized Tsutomu Yamaguchi as an official survivor of both nuclear bombings. Yet what makes his story even more haunting is that he never considered himself lucky. In interviews, he often spoke about the screams, the burning bodies, and the unbearable memories that followed him for the rest of his life. Nightmares haunted his sleep for decades. The image of that white flash over Hiroshima and Nagasaki never truly disappeared from his mind. And perhaps that is what makes this story so powerful. It is not simply about survival. It is about carrying the emotional weight of witnessing humanity at its absolute worst. Through unimaginable suffering, Tsutomu dedicated much of his later life to speaking out against nuclear weapons, warning future generations about the horrors he had personally seen with his own eyes. What makes this story even more disturbing is how ordinary decisions completely changed the course of his life. If he had not forgotten that document back at the office in Hiroshima, he might have been somewhere else during the explosion. If he had decided to stay home and recover after returning to Nagasaki, perhaps he would not have been near the second blast either. The entire story feels almost impossible, as if fate itself had trapped one man inside history's darkest moments. Even today, images of Hiroshima and Nagasaki continue to shock the world. The shadows burned into walls, the destroyed cities, and the survivors' testimonies remain terrifying reminders of what nuclear weapons are truly capable of doing. And in the middle of all that destruction stands the story of one ordinary man who somehow walked through hell twice and survived both times. So now the question becomes impossible to ignore. Could anyone truly continue living normally after witnessing something like this? Because surviving is one thing, but carrying those memories forever is something completely different. Stories like this remind us that reality can sometimes be far more terrifying than fiction. If you made it this far, comment below. Would I survive? I want to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy powerful, true stories that reveal the hidden side of history, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next video. Because here, every story uncovers a side of humanity that the world can never afford to forget.